from Yahoo Sports on Facebook. He's going to all the games. He's a bigger diehard homer than you, but he was talking about the sound issues. He talked about every small detail that they've had to work out going into this. Have you been out and seen it yet?
I was actually, check this out. I was out the day before, not last night, the night before last. So last night was the first home preseason game. I was there the night before watching my little cousin. He plays on the Junior Golden Knights. So I was out there watching him play for a few hours, and they were working through some of the kinks, some of the audio kinks, and some of the other issues that they have. And, some of the TV issues, like the game last night, the Channel 684, the AT&T Sports Channel, the new local channel, they still have some issues to work out, but, they're new at this. So it's not too horrible or anything like that, but the stadium itself it's beautiful. It looks like Staples. It looks a lot like Staples. There's not an obstructed seat in the house. The views are great. I mean, last night for a preseason game, we had 17,000 out at the game for a preseason game. So, there's a lot of excitement in the town. People are fired up. There's a lot of people asking questions, wanting to know about the rules of hockey and how many times they travel here.
What is that blue line for?
Right, it's insane. It's so hard because hockey's the kind of sport where, like, when you know what you're watching after you've watched it for a while or you've played hockey, you start to anticipate where the puck's going. So you're watching the game and you anticipate where the player is going to pass the puck or where you see the opening where the defenseman should be. Because the way the game is shot on the camera, it's such a wide view. You get to see the whole game develop, and the speed of the game is just intense. If you're not familiar with hockey, these guys are skating around, sometimes up to 35 miles per hour and having high collision impacts all over the ice.
I'm a big fan of it. I like the fact that you can have clean viewing lines because they do use up all of the ice. So even if you're up in the upper bowels of the facility, I don't know about Staples so much. It's got bad sight lines. But Honda Center, great place for hockey.
Well, I went to Staples. I was in Staples for the Stanley Cup, the Rangers and the Kings Stanley Cup, and I sat in 305, and it was perfect. It was all the way, upstairs. I went and sat with the other fans because I like to get the feeling that I'm actually at the game. I don't want everybody's face in their cell phone like sitting at the lower bowl in the Garden. So I went and sat in 305, and I walked around in the upper bowl there at the Staples for the Stanley Cup. And man, I'll tell you what, I was really impressed with the sight lines. I guess I'm used to a lot of the older original six stadiums back east where the sight lines are just so obstructed in some of these places, it's ridiculous. Like even at the new Barclays where the Islanders are playing in Brooklyn, even though it's a newer place, it wasn't built with hockey in mind. So when the Islanders moved in, the sight lines are terrible behind the nets where the goalies are. So, so you'll find tickets for those games for like $9.
Yeah, I agree. So what did you want to discuss in regards to the NHL season that we as fans should keep an eye on? Certainly.
Well, we got a lot of these new futures have come out for like the season point totals for some of the for the teams this year going forward, and there's a couple of season totals that I've looked at, and I don't know what's going on with their numbers, but I like a few of these to be really solid future wagers going forward here in this hockey season. And the first one is the Dallas Stars. Right now they're at 97.5 points. That's the total points that they'll have, as in games won. For each game won, you get 2 points, and if you get a tie, which you can't really have, but tie go to overtime and then shootout, you get 1 point. You lose, you get 1 point in the shootout, blah, blah, blah. So at the end of the year, you add up all the points, and that's where you end up in the standings. So right now they have the Dallas Stars at 97.5, and the over is at -125, and the under is at -105. And I like the under in this wager here. I don't think that the Dallas Stars are ready to compete at the level that everybody thinks they are, even though they've brought in some really good players and got some different changes in the coaching staff. I don't really think that they're a 97.5 point team, especially in the division that they're in. So I'm definitely betting the under in that wager there with the Dallas Stars 97.5. And another under that I like is the Carolina Hurricanes. They're in a super tough division. I mean, I don't see them there. I don't see a path for them getting 92.5 points. There's no way. I'm betting the under there as well. They got to deal with the Rangers. They have to deal with the Penguins. They have to deal with Columbus. They have to deal with the Flyers. They have to deal with Washington. It's just they don't have the horses to compete in that race. So I've definitely identified that as a place that you definitely want to take a shot and get down on some future wagering there. And then the third one that I was looking at, I was looking at the New York Islanders at 88.5, minus 120 on the over and minus 110 on the under. And I like the Islanders to go over 88.5 points this year. I think that the Islanders, with the addition of Eberle, really have a team that's setting themselves up to be very, very offensive. And if they can find a way to get some jam in that lineup and get some guys that can grind and that are willing to pay the price in front of the net, like a guy like Zach Wheeler perhaps, then that Islander team really has a chance to maybe even, push a team like my Rangers, who I think are going to end up around third place in the division, to even push them for the playoffs. I think the Islanders are really set up. If they don't have any injuries and Halak can, play net the way he did towards the end of the season, I think that the Islanders are really a solid play at 88.5 on the over.
Outstanding. Let's move it over to Major League Baseball, shall we?
Oh, Major League Baseball.
Your favorite topic. Your Boston Red Sox, I say that satirically, but and your New York Yankees have both clinched their way in. They are officially in. Cleveland is officially in. Houston is officially in. While the Angels, unbelievably, the Angels and Minnesota are fighting out for that final spot. I suppose that there is a chance it could be Seattle, but I highly doubt it. I guess Tampa Bay's kind of in the running, but from what it looks like right now, it's either going to be the Angels or Minnesota, and I'm kind of leaning towards Minnesota at this point. I don't know if there's enough time for the Angels to grab the game. It's one of those, Minnesota's got to lose and the Angels have to win ridiculous finish things. But crazier things have happened in baseball.
The season's about over. I mean, it's at that point now. It pretty much seems that we got what we expected here with the Yankees in Minnesota with the play-in game. So, the Angels would have to go on a miraculous. I mean, even then, what do we got? The Angels have played 157 games.
Yeah,
so they have to win every game.
They've only won 3 of their last 7. They're not coming in red hot into October.
Exactly. So I think it's going to end up being the Yankees in Minnesota, and that's going to spell trouble for Minnesota. And that's not just being a Homer Yankee fan. If you look at historically, the Twins have really struggled at Yankee Stadium. And coming into this series, this one-game playoff, they're going to be facing Severino with all hands on deck. So with the Yankees bullpen the way it is, you take a look at the run differential for the Yankees. We're at a plus 192. Runs scored and runs against, where Minnesota's at plus 26. It just goes to show you the sort of offense the Yankees have. And, it's the Yankees are the kind of team that if you don't have a serious ace, you're going to be in big trouble facing those bats. And I don't think that Irvin Santana is going to be the guy to come into Yankee Stadium and stop this hot Yankee team right now.
Okay, future book it for me. Let's talk about winner of the American League. Is it time for me? The season's not quite done. I'm probably going to get the best odds I'm going to get. Is this Cleveland's to lose? I like Houston a lot, but I still think that this is Cleveland's American League to lose.
Oh, I think so too. I think that Cleveland's definitely the team in the American League. Them and Houston are in they're in a tight battle right now, nose to nose. It's really gonna be a couple games left in the season, so we'll see what happens. But I think if they end up playing in the playoffs, I think Cleveland has the advantage due to the experience factor. Being there last year, coming within 1 out. This is a good Cleveland team, and they have a lot of good players on this team that really want to win. And I would put them as the odds-on favorite to win the whole thing right now, to be honest with you, in my opinion.
Moving over to the National League, Washington has clinched their division. I should say clinched a playoff spot. They haven't clinched. No, they clinched the division. I'm sorry. And the Dodgers have clinched their division. And Arizona's got 1 wild card under their belt. That still leaves the Chicago Cubs, the Milwaukee Brewers, all fighting it out. Actually, and Colorado's in the hunt as well for a wild card, which wouldn't be that surprising if the West produced both wild card teams. But Colorado's sitting at 86. They got a good shot at it.
Yeah, no, Colorado is definitely they're looking good right now. They're 2 games ahead of Milwaukee right now, with a few games left to go. Colorado, they've sputtered down the stretch a little bit. They had a smoking hot start, them in Arizona and any other season would probably be in a dogfight with the Dodgers coming down the stretch here. But the Dodgers have had that incredible run. So, it's going to be interesting coming down the stretch here in the National League. I really like the team Arizona has built. I'll tell you, they really got something nice going on down there. I'm really interested to see how that all works out, and I'm really interested to see how the Dodgers pitching holds up in the playoffs.
That is the whole thing. Again, National League is the Dodgers to lose. I would have to say, at any given point throughout the year, they have spanked every single one of these teams repeatedly.
Well, no doubt about it. The Dodgers have, they dominated people, and with the bad stretch of games, I have to wonder, were they bored? I mean, they ran away with this thing. What do they have to be engaged about? Not only have they run away with the whole entire thing, they're the best team in the league, statistically, right now by 4 or 5 games. So, the Dodgers are one of those teams where it's like, okay, well, you want to say to yourself, they're obviously odds-on favorite. But then, you say that bad run, and then you have Kershaw's back. Is he fully healthy? You just never know with these guys. And baseball's such an odd sport where these guys mask injuries all the time, and then they go out and get shelled, and then, 6 months later they're getting Tommy John surgery.
There you go. Moving over, National College Association of Collegiate Athletes doing football stuff. How'd I do? Am I getting closer each week?
That's pretty good for government work.
Still in first position, Alabama. Oh
yeah, roll Tide.
Roll Tide. What, 5th consecutive year? What? How many years has it been now for Alabama?
As long as Saban's been alive, it's insane. The guy just doesn't lose.
Roll Tide. 4-0. They take on Miss this week. So I got to give up 50 points?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like.
That's just a wild guess off the top of my head without looking at my odds on the other screen. But I'm going to take a wild guess that I got to give up at least 30 to 40 points in that game.
Let's see. I'll tell you the exact number right now. It's popping as we speak. Oh, actually, it's only 28 points, 4 touchdowns. So there you go. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to tease this one down a little bit just to play it safe because Alabama does tend to get a little bored this time of year.
Absolutely. So when you got a spread of 28 with a team like Alabama, you could go with the 7-point tease. That way you're not clipping yourself with the half point. Now you're going to have the worst odds of a teaser with the 7-point tease, but you're not worried about that half point, and we all know how disastrous the half point can be.
We've never actually talked about this. And probably good to talk about on the show for the hardcore degenerate gamblers like myself, because it's almost that time of the year where I actually can pretty much make educated guesses on pro football where I'll actually bet. Let's talk about, before I go down, should I do the top 10 or should we talk about tease types? Because there's tease, super tease, 1-point tease, half-point tease.
Right, and
where do you fall on all those cards?
I don't use cards. I bet off of the board.
So you're doing it straight.
Yeah, I bet off of the board. So what happens is when you walk into the sports book and they have everything on the board, right?
Right.
So you grab a sheet like you're going to bet the normal game, but on the sheet it'll have the number. So say you want to bet a teaser and it's Alabama and it's 28 on the sheet. Well, you know in your head that you can choose a 6, 6.5, or 7-point teaser.
Okay.
So you decide which one of those you want to do, and that's just off of the board.
But that will adjust the odds exponentially for my parlay bet, right?
Absolutely right.
But I could also take the next bet, say Clemson and Vatech. Really? That's another 30-point game. Is it Virginia Tech? They are playing Virginia Tech. Oh, good Lord.
You would think, let's talk about that one a little bit.
Okay, let's say that I wanted to take Clemson straight. So I could take Clemson straight up or play the money line, but put it against my tease down Alabama bet the way you're describing it.
Well, not in Las Vegas. See, in Vegas, not on the same ticket. Now, you could find ways to try and get a middle if you're creative, and, that could be a show all into itself about middling.
Yeah, because that's the way I do boxing. I do boxing on I do creative parlays on boxing, which is, okay, can I get the undercard to get my odds up and then take the won't go 12 with a Floyd Mayweather?
Right.
So that I can maybe wind up with a 3 or a 4-1 odd on the fight.
Correct. And you can get stuff like that a lot of times online. A lot of online, offshore shops will let you, have all kinds of exotic wagers, and they'll limit it. Of course, you can only wager a certain amount. But Vegas is pretty uniform about how they like to do things.